Alright, so I have a few lines left to make for the diagonals, so I'm just going to make those with a reference line, making sure that it's set to draw on face and that 3D snapping is manually checked for this one. And I'm going to go 1, 2, hit escape once, and then 1, 2, hit escape. I like to keep my lines going in the same direction when I can, and if I'm paying attention. So for later, if I'm hosting points, then 0 will be at 1, the same 0 and 1 will be the same ends. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a blended sweep on these guys. And so on these top ones, because they're single lines, we're going to have to put two circles and do a blended sweep. And you do that by placing points. So I'm going to go to point and draw on face, and you host them on that line, right? So if I click on those, you see that these get small and they're actually hosted. You can't move them off of there. And then I'm going to draw a couple of circles on those. So I'm going to go to Reference, Circle, and I'm going to set this plane on the point current. And you're going to make sure that it's draw on work plane. So we want this circle to host on the point and the work plane. And I'm just going to draw a circle. And then I'm going to go to Set and do the same thing over here. And then I want to put parameters on those guys so I can control the size of them. So if I pick the circle, I get a listening dimension. I'm going to click on this guy to make it permanent. So you just, the little dimension icon, and you get two dimensions that control the radius. And I'm going to pick both of them using the control key. And I'm going to come over here and create a new parameter. And I'm going to call that tube radius 1. Okay. And you're going to do that for all four of these. I'm not going to do that, but I want to show you something that you can do that might make it a little faster because it's annoying to have to go through and do all of that. You can actually come in here and pick these circles and the parameters, and you can copy them. So I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to turn off the constrain, and I'm just going to copy them over, maybe over here. Okay, and once you have them over there, you can then pick those points that are now not hosted to anything, and then pick new host and just place it on that. And so you don't have to go through and draw the circle and do all that stuff. So I'm going to pick that and pick new host, and it'll host it. And then I'm going to draw one on this guy and do one diagonal. So I'll go ahead and copy this guy over. And let's get rid of the constraint. And I'll just copy it over here and do the same thing. I'm going to pick the point and rehost it to that line. All right. And this one I want to actually control the size of it separately. So I'm going to pick the parameter. If you didn't have a parameter on it, you could go to New and make this one. But I'm just going to pick that parameter and go to Create New Parameter. And I'm going to call this Tube Radius 2. Okay. Once I have those parameters, they're kind of big right now, which is kind of helpful. Let's go ahead and do the sweep first. So we'll start out up here and do this one first. So to do a blended sweep, you pick the items. So I'm going to pick the two circles, holding down the control key, and then the path that you want to sweep it upon. So I'm going to pick the line, and then I'm going to create form. Okay, I can do it over here too, and create form. And then for this one, I'm going to pick this circle and I'm going to pick that line, and then that line and just sweep it across and create form. And then I'll go through, let's check and make these a little smaller now that we've got them swept. So I'm going to come over here to my family types dialog box, and I'm going to make the tube radius, let's make it 3 inches. And I'm going to hit apply here, and you'll see it shrink down to 3 inches. And then if I do this one, let's just do it at 6 inches. Okay, and hit apply. All right, so we've got those guys. This one went the whole way because we didn't have two circles. It just assumed we wanted to go along that whole line. This one is hosted to this point, that end, and that point, if I pick that point, so I'm just windowing around the point, you'll see that it has a normalized curve distance. So if I set that to 1, it'll fling it down to the end, and then if I pick this one and set it to 0, it'll fling it down to the other end. And I can do that for each one of these. If you're familiar with Revit, you could use a nested component for this. It'll give you error messages that points are in the same place. and that's actually okay. I'll do this at 1. If you're familiar with Revit, you can use a nested, um, whoops, don't want to do that, I want to do this, 1. Okay. If you're familiar with Revit, you can use a nested 3-point adaptive component and just click it in and pass the parameters through. I might talk about that at the end, but for right now, I'm just going to do this all manually. I'm not worried about the corners here because there's some, we're going to put little balls on there for joints. So the fact that they aren't that pretty is actually okay. All right, I'm going to go through and do the rest of these guys. Again, the ones that are a single line, like this one, you'll have to put 2 on, but if you're picking 2 individual lines, it will sweep it and it will work.